Hello, everybody. My name is Graysen. I am the CEO and co-owner of PERRLA. We're a software company that helps students tackle APA formatting to make sure that it's easy. Just curious, has anybody here used PERRLA before? Okay, we got a couple users. That's awesome. Come by the booth in the exhibit hall and you get a free unicorn stuffed toy. We give those away to our PERRLA users. So we also have stickers for everybody else. Well, welcome, congratulations. Some of this may be a bit of a repeat for you. And for those of you who have not heard of us before, it is the PERRLA that you are familiar with as a nurse. The guy who started our company back in 1998 was a nursing student at Vanderbilt who had a background in software. And he really felt like doing APA felt like a concussion, like getting hit in the head. And so his whole idea was that if you use the little software that he wrote to help him with references, that your paper would be PERRLA, right? Your paper's pupils are equal and round, reactive to light accommodation, and A-OK. So that's where the name came from, and it has stuck ever since. But we're really excited to be here at Auburn, especially to be partnering with Auburn University's College of Nursing. They are our newest institutional partner, and we're providing PERRLA to all their students, which we are really, really excited about. So in today's time, we're going to talk about APA, about the challenges that are involved in the APA for students, for faculty, and for academic coaches. We're also going to show you how PERRLA works to help solve those problems. And then we're going to talk about how PERRLA partners with institutions to solve those on an institutional or department-wide level. And then we will have lots of time at the end for any questions or demos or things that you may want to hop into along the way. So you are probably all sitting in here because you may have students who struggle with the APA or may struggle with the APA yourself. And as nurses who work in education, you know that probably some of the most common errors that you see in papers tend to be APA formatting errors, where you're writing over and over, see your APA manual, see your APA manual, see your APA manual. And you know that it's frustrating to grade, it's frustrating for students, and it's frustrating in class to have to cover it over and over and over again, especially when you have students who should know their APA by now. But I'm not going to just rely on anecdotes or our own personal experience to talk about this. I'm going to do what any good conference presentation should do. We're going to use some science. So this is a study that came out of the European University of Madrid last year by doctors Neubauer and Hernandez Sanchez, where they actually do use the APA at the European University of Madrid. APA is making big inroads into international schools. And they set out with one goal, to find out how much do students actually know about APA, because they were seeing the same problems that we see. And where do those things go wrong? Because citations become one of the most difficult issues for university students during their study plans in higher education. So here's what they did. They took 70 of their students and they gave them a 20-question assessment, both before and after providing APA training to them. Here is what they found. 80% of the students scored less than 50% in the pretest, meaning that the vast majority of students failed even the basic knowledge of how the APA worked, with most of those errors centering around generating references and citations. The one thing that is in every single APA paper students couldn't do. This is the really interesting part. Those knowledge gaps were consistent across academic levels. So they tested bachelor students, master's students, and doctoral students and found that that same failure rate was the exact same across all of them. So the longer that students were exposed to APA, the longer they had been expected to do it, made no difference in how well they knew their APA formatting. What does this lead to? It led to a state of frustration and rejection toward APA norms, and as a result, academic writing on the part of university students. They said in extreme cases, they even had students who avoided entire courses or just failed to turn in entire projects and assignments, took a 0 because they didn't feel confident in their APA. And that sets a real tone for these nurses and these students as they go forth into their career. If you have a rejection toward APA norms and the academic writing process itself, that becomes a real big challenge when APA is the language of the nursing field. When you want to be a successful nurse across your career, you have to be able to keep up with the newest research, to be able to understand how that research is put together, to be able to do that research yourself at the higher levels, and to be able to check behind other people to make sure that the information you're taking, that you're absorbing, is backed by evidence. Then they did an after test after providing the students with APA instructional information and courses, and found minimal improvement across the entire time. What did they actually recommend? So they did actually have a positive recommendation out of this. They found that asynchronous self-study alone was not sufficient, that the only thing that made a difference was one-on-one APA formatting instruction in the classroom. I don't know about you, but I've never met a professor who has a problem with too much time to be able to devote to one-on-one APA instruction in the classroom. It's not a knowledge problem. This is a systems problem. How we approach APA and the way that we expect APA to be done just doesn't work with the way that school is changing, with the way that we are constrained within the classroom, that students are constrained in their time and their energy. And as success coaches, what we're trying to help them accomplish. So what happens is students end up trying to memorize the rules instead of using them, and they miss the value and role that the APA plays in the nursing field, right? APA is not something that happens just because. It's not something that we do because we think it's fun. It's because it provides a strong framework for us to be able to share information, to be able to share knowledge, to collectively build a body of knowledge that furthers the field of nursing and healthcare. Causes students grade deductions, anxiety, and valuable class time spent on the basic elements of APA over and over and over. The APA, I think, says it really well at what their purpose is. When style works best, ideas flow logically, sources are credited appropriately, and papers are organized predictably and consistently, right? The whole point of the APA is to sort of get out of the way of the content of the paper, to allow the ideas and the arguments and the evidence stand for itself and not get distracted by bad italics and weird text and changing colors. That's where we come in. This is our whole purpose at PERRLA, is to take and make the process of doing the APA not less important, but less frustrating, right? APA is valuable. It is a part of the field. It is something that students need to know how to do and understand why it's valuable. But if our students only have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of energy, we want them putting that into the content of their paper, into understanding the material that they're trying to learn, instead of getting sidetracked and derailed by fixing a hanging indent or trying to figure out what should be italicized, or whether it's a period, or whether it's a comma, right? For faculty, we want you to be able to spend all of your time on the things that are most important for you. The reason that you're teaching, the content, making good nurses who understand the value of putting together a solid argument, of using peer-reviewed research, and being able to present these ideas to other people and assess them yourselves. So what is PERRLA? We are a comprehensive APA formatting software built specifically for students. We take and we handle the APA for students from the beginning while they are writing so that they don't get distracted by it. We're going to demo this in a second, but there are really two things about PERRLA I want to highlight as different, because there are other APA solutions out there. Does anybody use EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley, EasyBib? Scribbr is one of the really new ones, right? These are all APA solutions that if you know your APA, you know they can get you close to an APA reference, right? Kind of lives in that uncanny valley of something that kind of looks like an APA reference, but you have to really check behind it. The reason for that is because all of these other platforms use the same open source generic reference engine under the hood. It's the same engine, different car. They put a different logo, they put a different UI on it, but it's an open source reference engine created by a group called WorldCat that does great work, but their focus is not APA accuracy. They have over 1,500 reference formats inside of this engine, and so they are just cranking them out as fast as they can. What that means is that you end up having to know your APA in order to successfully use the APA tool, which kind of defeats the purpose of using the APA tool in the first place. We said that wasn't good enough. We built a rules-based engine from the ground up using the APA 7 manual as our guide. We have a proprietary engine that nobody else can touch, and we can build every single type of reference in the APA manual that is possible. And I mean every single one. I went and built those tests by hand myself using the manual when it was brand new. I've gone through 3 different manuals over the past few years because I've ripped them up, digging through it backwards and forwards. It's human built, human tested, no AI, no hallucinations, no excessive confidence, no guesswork. We are using tried and true, proven methods for building proper, correct APA references. So, for example, if you have a book chapter that was originally a journal article, translated from a German medical journal, the APA has a reference format for that. You have to include the book chapter information, followed by the original journal article information with the proper translation information, depending on whether the journal article or the book chapter is what was translated. PERRLA can do that. We can build up-to-date references, database references. We can do things like legal works, court cases, legal documents, executive orders. We can do things like databases. So if you have sociology databases, I know are really common about surveys and stuff like that, we can do that. Personal communication, anthologies, encyclopedias. We even have AI as a reference category within our software, so that if your students are using generative AI, they can give proper attribution to it according to the latest APA guidelines, which changed this past March. The other thing that's unique about us is that we format the entire document. We build the paper from scratch, setting up the title page, the body, ready for your students to start writing the content of their paper. We handle all the elements that can go into that paper, including references and citations. So as they add their references, we're building the reference section for them, keeping it updated and alphabetized as they add new works. So when they add 2 works from the CDC, we put the A and the B behind the publication date automatically in the references and the citations for them so that they're distinguishable from one another. We also can do tables, figures, tables of content, abstracts, appendices, and heading levels. So we can do all the elements that APA prescribes, plus student and professional research papers, correctly while students are working. So it's not a solution that students write a rough paper and then bring it to us, and we push it through a machine, and we try to pump out something correct. No, we're setting them up from the beginning for success so that they're seeing and being exposed to proper APA from the very beginning. So they have an APA compliant paper from start to finish. And no matter how you're using PERRLA, you end up with a normal Word document or a PDF that you can print. So you have something that is ready to submit and turn in. But where can you use PERRLA, right? There's a couple ways that PERRLA actually works. The first is inside of Microsoft Word, right? This is the gold standard, tried and true. We grew up on using Microsoft Word. I had Word classes when I was in school. We can use it in the desktop version of Word. That's the one that's everybody knows and is used, that you download to your computer. But we also work inside of Word for Web, which is Microsoft Word's attempt at doing Google Docs. But we live inside of your document. We'll actually get to demo this one in a second because I got it set up on this laptop, which I wasn't sure about. We also have our very own web app, which is like Google Docs, where you can write your paper inside of a web browser. So you can work on it a little bit from home. You can work on it a little bit from the library. You can work on it a little bit from work. It's always there. And then when you're done, you can download it as a Word document to submit. We actually do work in Google Docs. This past spring, we introduced a Google Docs extension so that you can write your PERRLA papers, research papers, discussion posts, reference lists, and annotated bibliographies inside of Google Docs. And to partner with all 3 of these, we have a Google Chrome extension that allows you to create references, add them to your PERRLA reference library, and then actually take notes on those references to add into your library so that while you're writing, you have access to all of your research notes at the same time. You can drag and drop into your paper with proper citation. We're going to talk now about the product. I'm going to show you how it actually works, okay? So we're going to start with PERRLA Online, because PERRLA Online is a great tool for students who are in associates, bachelor's, and early master's programs, right? Students who are really, truly pretty new to the APA experience. And the reason for that is, like we like to talk about PERRLA Online, is bowling with the gutter guards up. We're going to keep you in the straight and narrow, allowing you to do all the APA things that you need to, but only APA compliant content. PERRLA for Word, on the other hand, or Word Add-in, is really great for upper level master's students and doctoral students. Because when it comes time and you're going to start writing your dissertation or your thesis, you're going to have not only the APA requirements to deal with, but your institutional dissertation requirements as well, right? Which can sometimes conflict just a little bit with what the APA wants you to do. And having Microsoft Word allows you that kind of granular control. Now, all of these work the same way, which is really wonderful. But in all of them, you can create research papers. That's your traditional title, body, references page. Discussion posts, reference lists, and annotated bibliographies. Discussion posts are actually just the body and the reference page all together without a page break between it, so it's really easy to copy and paste into something like Blackboard or Canva, things like that. A reference list is exactly what it sounds like. It's a references page. And then annotated bibliography is a references page, but as you add references, it automatically adds the paragraph properly styled for you to type an annotation on why you're including that reference to begin with. As I said, students start their paper with PERRLA. We build it, setting up the title page and the body. We also add references and keep them organized while they write. The reference page builds and manages itself, generate and customize citations, and it works in any browser, anywhere. So this is a really great option for students who are on the move, right? You forget your paper, forget your laptop at home, no worries. You can log into the computer at a library, access it, download it, print it, whatever you need to do. Okay, let's look at PERRLA Online, and I'm actually going to do this inside of Chrome. If I can get this. app.perrla.com. All right, here we are. You actually can do this. I can find the mouse. Here we go. From our homepage, perrla.com. Right in the top right corner, we'll go to Login and choose PERRLA Online up here. And I'm going to log in. I'm going to log in with my special account so that we can check out a super secret new feature in a minute. So this is PERRLA Online. This is the home dashboard. This is where you land when you get started. You can see you have your recent papers. So these are the 5 most recent papers that you've worked on. Classes, you can create classes. Those are essentially like templates for your papers. So it just pre-fills your professor name and the class stuff for you. We're actually building this out. We'll talk about this in a second. It'd be really cool. And then some of the recent references that I've created. There's that one reference we had earlier from Neubauer and Hernandez Sanchez. So let's do this like we talked about. The process is always create the paper, write the paper, turn the paper in. Seems pretty simple. So we're going to start off, we're going to create new paper. Here we go. We can choose the type of paper, right? Research paper, discussion post, reference list, or annotated bibliography. We will do a research paper. As I mentioned, PERRLA can do student and professional research papers. So if you know your APA forward and backward, but you want to spend that energy doing something maybe more valuable with your time, you can do that. That's not a problem. But we'll put this in here. Now, anytime that we write about stuff, right, we have the unicorns, but we write about Bigfoot. And the paper that we go to is Bigfoot, the Truth Revealed. Right? So it's going to pre-fill our author and institution name based off of my profile. I'm going to choose a class, Cryptozoology 101, which is the study of cryptids, which are things like unicorns and Bigfoot. So 4/01/2026. How about that? Create research paper. That's it. Within a few seconds, we have a perfectly formatted APA document. Title page, properly formatted with all the appropriate information. Page number in the top right corner. No running head, right? We ditched that with APA 6. Scroll down here. Here's the body of our paper, where I can just start typing my content, right? And if I keep going, what's this? No references page. Why is that? Well, it's because the APA says until you have a reference, you don't have a references page. So, no reference page. So let's fix that. Now, there are 2 major elements in the PERRLA UI. The first is the toolbar across the top. And this is going to be the same inside of Microsoft Word. Get a nice ribbon tab up there, and it's going to look pretty much the exact same. Title page, abstract, table of contents, appendices, research notes, and outline. We'll look at those in a second. Text and heading styles, figures, tables, and I'm finished. That's where we'll end up. But references and citations here is where students are going to spend 95% of their time, right? Building references and citations. We try to make this super simple, right? Learning our software should not be harder than opening up the APA book. If it is, we failed at our mission. So let's take and add a reference that I've created in a previous PERRLA paper to our paper here. So here's my reference library. These are all references that I've made in the past, right? I've actually given some of these a tag to try to organize them. So I'm actually going to see which ones have the Bigfoot tag on them here. I'm going to add that Aitken reference, and what do you know? There it is, our references page with our reference properly sorted in there. Now let me come in here, let's add a cult reference. Look at there, there it is. Well, if I come back and add born, proper spot, right? I know that I've got one in here, toggle, here. I've got this one in here twice. We'll pretend that it is different references. All right, so I'm gonna add it once, add it twice. PERRLA automatically adds our A and our B for us, keeping up with that because we know we live in your paper, that citation is gonna look the exact same. If I remove it, it updates again correctly, right? Your students don't have to think about this. They're getting proper APA. They're getting used to the idea and the systems of citing, showing where your material came from, what this is supposed to look like, and how it works. But one of the questions we often get, and it's a very valid question, is this not a shortcut? Are students just not learning their APA if they're using something like PERRLA? Totally valid. This is the way that I always think about it. If you want to learn Spanish, what's the best way to do it? Go to Spain, go to Mexico, go to Guatemala. They speak really slow Spanish there. It's great. Immerse yourself in situations where you are surrounded with good Spanish, so you get used to seeing and hearing and participating in those systems. What we find with so many of our students, they come up to us at conferences all the time and they tell us, I love your program. I used it for years, and then suddenly in my final program, I didn't have access to it. I couldn't get to it, but I knew my APA. You guys taught it to me because I had done it for so many years with you. I know what it looked like. I had it down pat. And so there is a kind of immersion therapy that happens through this of seeing what proper APA is supposed to look like, right? This is the way humans naturally learn. All right, so that's how we can add some references. What about making a brand new one? As I mentioned, we can create all the reference types. So in the All Types tab, these are all the possible reference types you can create. And if you notice, these are actually sorted and categorized very similarly to how the APA builds their broad categories for textual works, data, software, and tests, audiovisual media, legal references, and last but not least, online works. Now, if you are creating a book, a journal article, or a website, you can search for the reference's bibliographic information instead of having to type it in. So if you have a journal article, you can pop in a DOI. We're going to go out to Crossref. We're going to pull back its bibliographic information and pre-fill your reference form. If you've got a book, you can search by ISBN, that's the number right above the barcode on the back, or author and title. And if you have a web page, you can actually just put in the URL. We'll go out and we'll scrape that page and try to grab its information. Web pages, Google Chrome extension is great at creating web pages because it can bypass firewalls and paywall logins. So if you have access through your library to locked down databases like JSTOR or EBSCOhost, our Chrome extension can grab that without having to worry about anything else. But I think the book I was looking at earlier was Bigfoot Secret History. Lots of fun books and works out there about Bigfoot. So we're going to go out, we're going to look, we're going to pull references from Crossref and from ISBN DB. We have some journal articles, Bigfoot Around the World. You know what? Actually, this was supposed to be a book that I was looking for. Here it is, 3rd edition by John O'Connor. Use this work. This is our reference form, okay? So when we pull back this information, we're going to pre-fill our reference form for students, and then we have them review it. Because this information was put in by some human, or used to be some human, or some AI, and before I put it into my paper, I want to make sure that it's actually accurate. And you'll notice that for each of these entries, we are also providing guidance on how that text and that element is supposed to be formatted for the APA. So John O'Connor, here's our book title, publication year, edition, format, publishers, no DOI, although books can have a DOI, and live preview. You can ignore this bit down here because I'm in my super secret account. But here's live preview of the reference that we're going to create. O'Connor, J, 2024, Secret History of Bigfoot, right? This is a standalone work, so the primary title is italicized. So next, here I can add a description. So if you had done a journal search and there was an abstract, we could find abstract metadata. We'll actually pre-fill that into your description for you. Tags. This is where we can put tags to help organize our references. So Bigfoot, NCNAC 2026, right? And create. What do we know? There it is, O'Connor J in our reference section, right? So you can create references pretty easily, pretty quickly with that. But references are only half the story, right? Let's talk about citations. So let's say I have a quote. This is a great quote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor where I want the citation to appear, which is right before the terminal period, right? And then I'm going to choose the reference that I want to cite. We will cite that O'Connor reference we just created. I'm going to choose add citation. Again, really simple, really straightforward, nothing complicated here. I can choose to format my citation, right? So it's going to give me a live preview what that citation is going to look like. I can choose whether or not to include all the elements in my citation. So if I had said, according to Dr. O'Connor, this is a great quote, I can leave O'Connor out of the contributor name, right? I can leave that out of my citation. We are working on adding the ability to auto-recognize within the sentence in front of it if that's there, and go ahead and pre-select that for students. You can always modify it, but we are working on that. All right, saying in a 2024 work, go on. This is a direct quote, so we do need a location. So we'll say page 53 and create. There we go. There's our proper citation right there. Now, let's make this even more interesting. And let's say that this, for some reason, is the exact same quote in two sources, in both the O'Connor source and in the Aitken source here. PERRLA can create those merged citations, making sure that they are organized alphabetically correctly for you. All right, let's look at just a couple other features here inside of PERRLA Online that make it especially good for students who are new to the academic writing process. One of those is the outline tool. The most successful way to write a paper is to create an outline. Organize your ideas, organize your research, have a plan for what you're going to do when it comes to writing your paper. My good papers used outlines. My not great papers didn't. And when I did this, I used to do it with index cards. I had a whole stack of paper index cards. I'd write all my notes on them, and then I'd sort through them one at a time, hand by hand. It was after the typewriter, but it was still on paper. So we have a couple of sort of default outlines in here for common assignment types, right? Care plans, literature reviews, case studies, reflection responses, or if you want to build your own, a custom one. So we'll actually look at the case study here. What we'll do is we'll sort of give a guided summary of this is what typically goes into a common case study, right? With the caveat, always follow your instructor's directions first, right? This is just to help students who are new to the process understand how they might want to organize their information, right? We don't actually write anything. We're just giving them some ideas. In here, I can add citations. So this is another way you can create a citation. If you just type the opening parenthesis, you can choose from the references that are already in the paper and create that citation while you write. So if you like to keep things, your fingers on the keyboard, you can do that. Let me take and let's save this. Make sure we're saved here. Let's go back to the editor. Now I have a great outline. What do I do with it? Well, I can open up the outline panel on the side. And while I am writing in the body of my paper, I can take and I can view my outline and say, you know what? Yep, I covered that. Covered that. This is what's next. So let me take and click this and drag that into my body, into my paper. for us. So I can organize all my content, work my way through it while I'm writing. PERRLA helps students keep up with that. Okay, there's a lot of other stuff here, but this really is the basics of using PERRLA. So let's do the thing that we want to do is we want to turn this in, right? So we're going to end with the I'm finished button. So we can download this as a simple Word document or as a PDF. We'll go Word document and see how this works on a stranger's computer. Here we go. Microsoft Word. I know, I'm viewing. Here's our research paper. Title. Body with citations. Reference page. Easy as that. PERRLA really does try to take the frustration out of this process for both students and faculty. So let's talk a little bit about our Word add-in. I'm now inside of Microsoft Word, and I can install PERRLA through the add-in store right here. Just like installing an app on your phone, just search for PERRLA, click add, and it's going to add in the PERRLA ribbon bar. Now you'll notice this looks very familiar to what we just saw in PERRLA Online. So if you have students who aren't sure what they want to do, they learn how to use PERRLA once. It works the exact same way everywhere. We'll start off by creating a new paper. In this case, let's make a discussion post. Got it. Post. Okay. PERRLA is going to build our discussion post right there. So we have the body and a reference section, right? Making it easy to copy and paste into something like Blackboard. Now, when you do paste this into Blackboard, Blackboard has its own funniness that it'll do. So we get it as close as you can get within Blackboard. Blackboard doesn't have double spacing. It doesn't do hanging indents, but you know what? It's an effort. It's good. You know, it's trying. Let's add that O'Connor reference we just made. So, O'Connor, right? My references sync across computers. Sync to the cloud, and they're there. Let's add at Bigfoot, right? Aiken. Here we are. This is it. Now, there's one thing that you do need to know about Microsoft Word. That is something called a content control. It's this little box right here. If you have ever had students who turned in a paper and you've seen these weird little boxes in here, I'm sorry, that was our fault. Actually, it's Microsoft Word's fault. This is the way that Microsoft Word allows us to put content into a paper and keep track of where it is. So if, for instance, you were citing the CDC, right? Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, brackets, CDC. First time you cite that reference in your paper, you need to put the full name of the organization with CDC in brackets. And then for all the subsequent citations, you just put CDC, right? So you don't have to keep spelling it out every time. We need to know where those citations are in your paper so that we can properly update the first one and all the subsequent citations, making sure that they're there. But what do? We provide that same I'm finished button right here. I can create a clean copy. This is going to make a duplicate version of my paper. Everything exactly the same, except no boxes. That's it. That's the way that this works. Inside of PERRLA Online, you do have access to research notes still. We didn't look at that. You also have access to your PERRLA reference library, so you can see and view your entire reference library here inside of Word. Every student does get access to all of these as part of a subscription, but it's going to do all those same things that are in there. Okay. All right, let's go back to our presentation here and keep on talking through here. What it looks like in practice. Okay, this is great. That's how PERRLA works. It's the challenge, it's the demo. What does this mean when it comes to an institution, right? We have been doing case studies for the last few years, and I'm going to talk about one that we did with Western Nebraska Community College and their TRIO programs. The TRIO program supports, it's the TRIO Veterans Upward Bound program and the Student Support Services. That supports two very different communities student communities within WNCC. The Veterans Upward Bound program supports veterans who are actively transitioning from active duty into higher education. And the Student Support Services supports first-generation students, low-income students, and students with learning differences. These are students who already face a significant amount of friction in the higher education process, and they're not going to have the extra capacity to try to perfect their APA formatting. And so the TRIO programs consistently saw frustration from their students in that, getting late night emails, getting freakouts. My APA is not right. I'm losing points on my papers. I'm not doing good in this program. I need help. So we partner with them to provide PERRLA to their 125 students. So when we rolled this out, we gave it to their students. We did a couple of Zoom webinars for their students, showing them, doing the tutorials on how to use it, and then let it go. And things just got quiet. The late night emails, the frustration during office hours, student freakouts just kind of disappeared. And over that year, things just seemed to run well. And like many people who work in higher education, there was a lot of other fires going on, a lot of other stuff to keep the TRIO workers busy. And so they just didn't quite realize how much volume silence can have. So, I'm going to jump back a second. At the end of our case study year, because things had been pretty quiet, they really didn't know if their students needed PERRLA or not. And so they allowed their PERRLA access to lapse temporarily, because as soon as it ended, students came banging on their door. Students who usually don't have a lot of time to advocate for themselves came directly to them saying, do not take this away. I need my PERRLA back now. They weren't asking for more resources on learning APA. They weren't asking for tutoring time on APA. They wanted their PERRLA because it was a tool that helped them make the writing process, the classroom process, the learning process easier. After that, they came back. We're in a consistent site license with them now, and they said PERRLA checked every single box. It fits our budget, it fits our reporting, it fits our student use, and it fits our flexibility. Why does PERRLA work at scale versus individually? We do sell PERRLA individually to students, and we've done that since 1998. But we are working with institutions to provide PERRLA for schools directly. And there's something that changes when you provide PERRLA to all of your students at an institution. One, it levels the playing field between your students. When you only have individual access, you only have individual benefits. So what you end up doing is still having to teach APA in the classroom, still grade different cohorts, different groups of people inside of the same cohort. Some of them who have really great APA and some of them who don't, which seems very similar to where we find ourselves today. The other thing that it really does is it shifts your ability to talk about APA from something that's fairly intimidating and something that's reserved for the big final paper into something that can become mundane and a common part of every assignment that a student tackles. So from the beginning of the semester across the entire program, you're not spending time in the classroom teaching and reteaching APA. You can expect proper APA on discussion posts, on reflection papers, on the little things that students do week in and week out, so that by the time the big paper comes around, when the APA becomes really important, they're already familiar with it. It's not a big thing to be scared of. It's a natural part of the researching and educational process, right? That's a real shift in perspective on how you can approach APA, which opens the door to focus on what APA is doing at the bigger level. You don't have to teach it, it teaches itself. Oh, this is also a great thing. PERRLA also, we have an amazing US-based student success team. We're available every day until 10 p.m. I don't know if you guys who have used PERRLA before have ever had to reach out to our team, but we respond within about 15 minutes when the student emails with clear instructions on how to get things done. So if your students are using PERRLA and they've got a question about how do I format this reference? Is this in the right spot? What's this heading supposed to look like? I can't get this installed. It's logged me out. What's my password? You don't answer those questions. Your IT department doesn't answer those questions. Our experts in-house answer those questions. Our team has been with us anywhere from 6 to 15 years. Our 15-year support person, Shane, has been with us 15 years. He is our dissertation specialist. So when you have APA students who are doing a dissertation and using PERRLA, he's the one who can make sure that it follows that template exactly. It provides grading consistency and quality improvements when formatting errors stop being a variable. Shift and APA flexibility, right? One of the big things that's changing with institutions is questions about, is writing the most appropriate way for us to always assess student knowledge? Fair question. AI really changes the game there. We're building PERRLA to be flexible, like those reference lists, right? So that students can generate APA for the different types of assignments that schools are beginning to introduce to adjust to our current circumstances. PERRLA always includes, right, all of these. Every PERRLA user gets the same access to all of our platforms everywhere and our support team. Licensing options, right? Final $1 million question, nuts and bolts, individual students. So individual students can sign up for $13 a month, $80 for a year, $130 for 2 years, right? That's our best one. If you're in dissertation program, that's the way to go. Even better are institutional pricing. For institutions, when they provide PERRLA to their students, $9.95 per student, $10 per year. Okay, so from 80 to 10, with free lifetime access for all faculty and staff who teach inside the program. Because you can benefit from PERRLA as well. And if you're not champions of it and understand how it works, it's not going to succeed as well. So if you have 50 students in your program for $500 a year, you can have perfect APA on every assignment that you submit. We're also exploring this year institutional affiliate partners. So if charging $10 to a fee to your students is not possible, or you have budgetary constraints that are coming down from people above, we are exploring ways where students can receive a 35% discount by purchasing through an institutional link that may be posted in your learning management system, inside your bookstore, all the places where those fun links live. So where does this leave us? APA is not going away. Things are changing, technology is changing, but APA is a part of the way that the nursing community works. It is the language of the field, and students are going to have to know it in order to succeed across their career. But the mechanics of formatting in APA don't have to be a barrier, right? They can be there are tools and things available that can allow students to succeed in that, to accomplish the bigger goals of what the APA is trying to do without getting stuck in the minutia. When APA becomes normal, it creates the room for important skills to develop. It gives you back that class time, grading time. It gives you space for students to understand how to build arguments, use research, and so forth. We don't think of PERRLA as a shortcut, right? We think of it as a better starting point for students. This is a real question that people have when it comes to AI. We don't use AI anywhere within our software. We just format things that students create, their content correctly. And I think that's a real difference between us and things like AI that can sometimes shortcut the learning process, where they're not invested in getting to that final result. We're just making sure that along their journey, they don't get stopped. So this is my information. If you want to talk about a case study for your program, if you want to explore what an institutional license might look like for your school, affiliate linking, we are happy to talk. We are very able to customize and work with your program however it works, to build a site license that works. The minimum number of students that we usually work with is 10. If you have 10 students, it's good enough for us. Our largest program has over 10,000 at Colorado Christian University out west. There you go. Okay, that was a lot. Oh, of course, my references page built with PERRLA. Questions? If not, I'll show you our super secret things. Okay, let me go in here. So PERRLA is great for building papers. We are actually building, I have 4 minutes, okay. We are building research management in here. So if you've ever used Mendeley or Zotero, where you can upload your reference files or keep track of all of your research, we are actually doing that inside of PERRLA. We're revamping the reference library. We're hoping to release this in the next 2 weeks, where you can actually upload and keep track of your original file references. If you're using our Google Chrome extension, within the next month or so, we're going to be automatically saving the content that you're creating those references from. So if you are creating a journal article from a PDF, we're going to automatically grab it and add it into your cloud for you so that it's there, including descriptions. This is where you can write your research notes. Again, add that citation in there. I can build a body of research that I have in here, as well as see it in the papers that I've used it in and the tags that I've used it in. So this is one of the things we're really excited about to make PERRLA more useful and more beneficial at the faculty level, right, and at the research level. So if you're used to writing, you want to build a comprehensive library of research that you can search across, that you can use inside of your papers, that natively works. This is going to allow you to do that. I don't know if you've ever tried to use EndNote to build a bibliography. It's not the easiest process or the most accurate one, but we'll be able to do that, right? Because you've got your research here inside of your papers. That research is going to be available. Oh, there's my discussion post we made. Oh, I can show you that too. You have your research available here and inside of this little sidebar here, right? For dragging and dropping, just like we did an outline item. This is really nifty for faculty. If you have a student and you're not sure if they used AI on their paper, you may just be suspicious. If they use PERRLA on it, inside every one of their papers, whether they wrote it in Word, online, or in Google Docs, we save a backup of it inside of PERRLA Online. Inside the Overview tab, you can see a history of their paper saves. And they can print this out and submit it as a PDF. So if you have a 12-page paper and it has 15 minutes worth of save history, I'm not saying they did something else, but we don't have the history to back it up. Just something different up there. Okay, well, thank you everybody so much for coming out here. If you would like a copy of our WNCC case study, we have it in full text here, as well as a second one for Stephen F. Austin State University, where they provide it to traditional RN to BSN students. Last thing I will mention, we provide PERRLA site licenses free to ADN and ASN programs. So if you know an associate level program that would like to get this for their students at absolutely no cost, come talk to me. Thank you.